Hello. Oh.
All right, how everybody doing tonight? Pretty pumped and excited, right? Well, and the good news is next week's spring break. Anybody cares?
Right?
Class next week?
Do I? No class. Campus is open. The lab's open downstairs till 3 every day. Closes Saturday. So I tell all my students wait before spring break, same thing. Try to take a couple days, no technology, spend time with your family and friends, talk to people, right? Converse would be helpful. Something like that. Go rock cut, walk around in the woods, away from technology. I recommend that. It's good for you. Good for you. Non-screen time, right? All right. So first off, I want to show you a job posting from our website. It just came in today. You might be interested in. It's a part-time job at myrvc.org. Just go to jobs, and it's down in the networking jobs area. Just posted today. Entry-level desktop support. The company is called, excuse me, Advanced Machine and Engineering Company, or AME.com. It's a part-time job in IT department for entry-level desktop support. So what that means is installing software, setting up printers, setting up computers. So if you can do that or want to learn how to do that, they'll even teach you if you know a little bit about it already, which most of you do. They'll work around your school schedule, and it's a great company, and they pay well for a part-time job. So if you need a job that will work around your school schedule, check them out. You can just send them your resume. Steve Schubert is the chief sales officer, and I'm guessing I've announced it all day today. It'll go pretty quick. I'm guessing it'll be filled pretty quick. So if you're interested, get it in, get your resume to him as soon as possible. Now, if you have zero experience job-wise with networking, that's okay. They're wanting to hire RBC students. So just saying you're taking your intro to networking class, taking maybe whatever other course you're taking here on campus, but I'm willing to learn and wanting to, get the ground running. I know how to install software. I know how to install printers. Don't lie on your application, but, you can tell them the stuff that you do know how to do. And again, it's entry level, meaning they don't expect you to have any experience whatsoever. It's a first level job for networking. Make sense? And again, desktop support is it is one of the first foot in the door for networking. And so make sure and avail yourself. Do I have questions on that position? If you're not interested or you already have a job and you know somebody that is, I would forward it to them if I was a good friend, let them know about it. And let's get this job filled in the next week over break. So that's that. Next is, if you are interested in volunteering, I hit you guys up the first week in class on the little questionnaire I had for you on volunteering and things of that nature. I'm not really asked for anything yet, but after break, we're going to be having quite a bit of stuff coming up that I need help with. So anyway, first is let's go to schedule here. In fact, I probably just pull it up. Let's pull it up on our website. Go to events. Okay, so Hour of Code, March 13th. It's a Tuesday, 5 o'clock for 1 hour. If you're interested in helping, you don't have to have any coding experience. Just be able to walk around, help ages of 5 up to, how to click a mouse, how to follow directions, stuff like that. That's about it. It is at the downtown location, which is kind of a cool location if you've never been down there. It's at the RR Star building, second floor. And so if you're interested in helping, it's just 1 hour. I'll show you how to do it. It's really simple. Just basically walking around, helping people out on following instructions. It's drag and drop coding. And I believe, let's see, on that month, let's see what we're going over that night. It's once a month, so let's get the schedule here. We got some new ones this year that we're doing, new hour codes. This one, let's see. It's actually, this date here is wrong on this one. It's Star Wars Updated is what that one is. Star Wars Updated. In April, it's Google, create your own logo. May 1st is Wonder Woman. based on the movie Wonder Woman. And then June 5th, we actually moved to, this is summer months, and you're more willing to help, more than willing to take your help. Summer months, starting in June, we'll be meeting at the Cherryville Mall from that point on. They gave us a spot to do the Hour of Code. And basically, Hour of Code is just a place where people come from the public and students both to learn about coding. And we start out drag and drop coding and logic coding. And they create an app in 1 hour that they can play on their phone. And so anyway, that's a lot of fun. It was pretty cool. The mall let us do that. So if you're interested, just shoot me an email if you're interested in that. The other event I'll make mention here is any women in here or even guys that want to help in the Girls Who Code. We're ramping up our projects in there. They're creating, there's 4 teams creating a web app and a mobile app, iOS and Android, both. And if you're interested in helping any way you can help with that as well. And you don't have to be a programmer per se, just again, walking around, see if anybody needs help doing something. You'll have all the access to all the stuff that we do in that club. And the way that club works is basically it's designed to teach girls how to code from 6th grade to 12th grade. Boys are allowed, but it is a focus on girls and basically bridging the gap or the divide. As we all know, there needs to be more women in technology, more women in coding. So trying to change that perspective for some of them. The RBC Women in Technology, we are no longer doing. They're shifting those women into the Girls Who Code. So yeah, Hour of Code and the Girls Who Code. Those 2 we need volunteers for. And I also have one other project I've not yet gotten help with. I'm not really asked. Is it's an app, mobile app for Upward Bound. And what it is it's taking a list of words, right? And then the students have to study these list of words. I think they're Greek words, and they have to know the definition of these Greek words, all right? So all the app's going to do is float around the actual word that they need to define, and then it'll pop up definitions also, and they're supposed to be able to match the 2. So it'll pop up a word and it'll float around a whole bunch of definitions. They tap on the correct definition to win the level before they go to the next level, which is a new word. So if you're interested in that, you don't have to have it. You can be an app developer or not. I'll teach you what you need to know. Again, I'm needing testers, people that have a Android or iOS device that we're willing to test, need that. People with ideas need that. So, everybody in between. And if you want to code and you've never coded before, I'll teach you that too. So I'll teach you what you need to know to help me with the app. But we need to get done. Next month. Got the foundation stuff done, but need testers, need developers. I'd like to have maybe, 2 or 3 students would be awesome. So if you're interested in that, see me before you leave tonight, and we'll definitely start up after spring break and see what we can do.
What time is that?
Do what now?
What time is that?
What's that?
What you just talked about.
Well, there's no specific time. It's just a project that we have that we're working on.
Okay.
And so, yeah, if you're interested, let me know, and we'll work around your schedule and all that good stuff. We'll probably meet once a month until it's finished. Hopefully I don't have to meet 2 times. But I'll give you some tasks to do and everything like that to help out. So, yeah, let me know if you're interested. Sounds like you are. Let me know. Put your name down. Any questions on that? Okay. Well, tonight we're going to be doing the chapter 7, which we are on week 8 remote. Next week or week after next, we come back. We'll be doing TCP/IP networking with we'll be doing routing and converting IP to binary to IP. Week 9, or cut this off on mine. Week 9. That's research night. Basically, that night's going to be actually 3 weeks from tonight. You're going to be able to use that night to start your research paper, which I know everybody has already started. But I will give you some help in week 9 to get started. This is supposed to say week 10. Week 10, that'll be the night you're going to be on your own to start your outline. I'll give you some guidelines on that. I had to move these around because I had this one over here, which is like next week after spring break. And so I'll give you a week, spring break, come back, and then off a night again for your research night. I do that every semester for my 110 students and 130 students to research, start their outline at least. Week 11, we do more remote technology with VNC, which is a popular remote software to remote in computers to help people in help desk situations. Week 12 is troubleshooting lab. That's where you'll actually learn how folks in help desk help people. So you'll be a troubleshooter, plus you'll be a user with issues. Some of those issues are mental issues, meaning you're stressed and you're, mad at IT or mad at life in general. And some of them are actually computer problems. But we find all that, and when you're working in IT, you come across those type of things. In IT, a lot of times you're not just a technical help. You're also sometimes just somebody to listen to. Or your sounding board basically for people. Especially the type where they call every day at 9 a.m. Have an issue every day at the same time, different issue. But then during the discussion, you find out it's more than the computers that they're having a problem with. All right. And so we'll talk about that. We have some fun ones, some fun little skits we have you guys do, or little scripts I have you coach you with on how to do. And the issue on that one is a troubleshooter is supposed to figure out what the problem is. And again, sometimes it's computer problems, network problems, but sometimes not so much. I'll give you one example. One person on the script was, let's just say, laid off for about 3 months for an incident on trying to tamper with some data on a computer, on a database network server. Came back and tried to get a new IT person to give him rights to a certain location. So that's just one of them. I'll give one more. One is one doesn't understand English too well, but and basically makes a person on the other end feel bad because they don't. So that's one of them as well. And one doesn't follow directions, keeps asking the same questions over and over and over again. We've all had that before. And then the NOS is week 13 is covering network operating system Linux, Mac OS, and Windows OS. You'll install client users on those devices, on those servers. And then the last 2 weeks is presentation. So tonight, do me a favor before we get going, because right after the discussion, I'm going to give you your take home, which, by the way, you're going to be doing between now and 2 weeks from 2 weeks from Sunday. It'll be due. It'll be a remote lab that you'll remote into each other's computer with TeamViewer, which you'll find out what that is in a second, to experience that outside of the building. So go ahead and go into week 8 and submit your name while I'm going over the discussion for week 8. That way I won't forget. All right. So network and WAN connectivity is what we're talking about tonight. And again, go into week 8, submit your name. WAN technology, anytime I hear the word WAN, we talk about this, it has to do with the internet, connected to the internet, some form or fashion. And in this case, WAN technology is where the network is traveling over a distance for connectivity. And WAN and LAN commonalities is they both on the layer 3 protocol. They're client host resources. Just like in this room, we can set up a server for our room here, and it will be a small LAN, right? But we could also communicate via Facebook or via any other social media platform or any other type of communication tool, and be a WAN technology, but the same exact hardware is in both. Just the distance is a difference, the distance between. And so anytime, again, you hear WAN technology, because we have a LAN in this room and have zero internet connection, be connected to one another. But anytime you're connected across a regional distance, generally you're going to have some type of internet connectivity in that. Now, that internet connectivity could be fiber, a firewire, it could be satellite technology, it could be a number of different ways to get that internet connectivity. Cell phone towers through cellular, a whole bunch of different ways. Some differences in WAN and LAN is layer 1 and 2 2 access is the topologies, basically. In a LAN also, it's private, like in our environment here, whereas in a WAN, it's public, meaning it's a public IP addresses. So if you are communicating via Facebook, Twitter, any other communication tool like that, you are functioning on a public Wi-Fi or a public IP addresses. Here's what a WAN topology looks like. So again, it's taking internally what we have here and expanding it regionally. So instead of computer to computer or building or room to room, it's literally city to city, maybe country to country, connecting to one another in different spots. So in this example here, it's got Detroit, Seattle, New York, Charleston. It's got on the left side a unique LAN environment for each one of those locations. And so each one of those locations then can be connected by different mediums. Again, could be connected by T1, which we'll talk about tonight, which is a way to connect. Satellite is another one. Fiber is another one. And even dial-up. Even dial-up isn't as popular anymore, but even dial-up is still available, and people do use it sparingly in locations. So it's a geographical location network, basically, instead of having, again, room to room or building to building, like on this location here. It's literally spread out amongst different spaces. Topologies on WAN, again, covering distances. The exact same type of topology. So you can have a star topology, a bus topology, a hybrid topology, a ring topology, but all spread out regionally with the distance between. Generally, the distance is generally connected via, as I mentioned already, high-speed internet connections. Falls upon the layer 3, meaning there's routers involved. When we did the lab a few weeks back, where we did the pinging lab, and then also we did the one where we did the multiple hops going from router to router to router to router to router. That's WAN technology falls upon that. The bus topology, again, old school topology, but still could be used in WAN technology. You'll see in a second, a picture in just a second. But similar to LAN, and again, the distance. The drawback on bus, it's non-scalable. Once it's connected and set up, it's static, but it does work for certain businesses. Like, for instance, downtown Rockford has a number of businesses set up on bus topology. They share internet connection with Rock River Internet to 3 or 4 businesses, and they have point-to-point satellites on top of the buildings that share this internet connection, and they share the cost. And it works. It's not, they don't want it to be scalable. It's only 4 or 5 buildings connected, and that's it. And then each one of those buildings get internet from those connections on the top of the building. You'll notice in this example, it has building to building different mediums connecting. We'll talk about in just a bit the different types, but DSL's one, T1. And then ring topology, and that's where you have 2 sites always carrying data throughout the time that the data flow. So if you have one site, point A, we'll say site A trying to carry data to site Z. Every time data is moved on a ring topology, it shares that data and duplicates it 2 times to 2 other sites as it goes through. There's a lot of redundancy. It has differences on the LAN ring topology is location connections. It relies on redundant rings, and it's difficult to expand because it's expensive. Because most ring topologies have, for the network side of things, an input NIC card and an output NIC card on the server level. And so it can be pretty expensive. And it generally is a lot of redundancy. Best use, banking uses Ring still, governmental still uses Ring, New York Stock Exchange uses Ring. And again, those are all spread out sometimes regionally. Here's a Ring topology. You'll notice, unlike the bus, they are all connected one to another in a Ring format. Star topology, the most modern and the most common WAN topology, just like for local area LANs, mimics the local LAN topology. There's a single site location, like an example I mentioned a while back, Pepsi, which I worked for years going through school. Their location, their mothership is in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that is the central location for all transactions, communication, payroll. If you clock in Joplin, Missouri, or Springfield, Missouri, or Springfield, Illinois, at the end of the day, Tulsa has all that data, and they're the ones that do all the payroll for all of the big locations around. Like I think there's one here in Rockford on 90, if I'm not mistaken, a Pepsi location. Advantages of a star is single connection failure affects one location. So if Joplin, Missouri, Springfield, Illinois, Rockford, Illinois failed in that location, it's only that location that's affected. Tulsa's still up. All the other places are still up and going. Shorter data path between any two sites when they're all connected. Expansion is very simple. You just add a new connectivity, whatever that might be. Again, it could be via your existing internet connection provider, your ISP, just using that tunnel for that, or a unique dedicated connection. An example is a company, Coca-Cola company here in town. They have direct connection to their Madison location, which is kind of the regional hub for Coke, evidently. And they have a direct fiber line from the Coke distributor here in Rockford to the Madison distributor. Again, it's very expensive, but companies do that for security purposes and also to make sure that their data is not being shared with anybody else. And they can afford it. It's Coke, right? They make a lot of money. Advantages also is, or the drawback is essential site failure. So if Tulsa goes down and Pepsi, everything goes down. If Madison goes down for Coke, all of Rockford region, whoever else is connected to Coke in those regions is down. So here's an example of Star. We have connected here. We'll say the tall building is the mothership of the company, and all the other ones are subsidiaries connecting to it. Mesh is the other one. That's a conglomerate of everything else connected one to another. On a mesh one, though, it's different than like hybrid. We went over hybrid on LAN. Mesh is a little different in the fact that it actually puts kind of like a ring with a cross in between it. So a crosshair is in between to connect all the other sites. And so mesh basically not only connects one to the other, it also, you'll see in the middle, duplicates that connection, all right, for redundancy. And so making sure the data gets there. If one connection fails, the fallback is on the other connection. And they're all flowing at the same time. T carriers, this is the most popular, like here in the building in Rock Valley. We have a T3, T5 line, I believe, 2 T3s and 1 T5, which is really expensive. It's like $1 million a year or something, the cost is. But we hire people to write grants so we can get this connection. It's the fastest connection, the most bandwidth that you can get. It does fall on, or it's different ones. T5's not on there, but that's one that's out now too. But T1s and T3s used to be really popular and still are, but T5s have come up in the last couple of years. It falls on the physical layer of the OSI. It can be divided into multi-channels. And a medium on this, telephone wire can fall on, fiber, wireless links, any type of medium T carrier can fall on. Speeds are pretty significant. And so you'll see the T5 that we have now, 400 megabits per second upload and download speeds. And for business, that's pretty good. For a company, that's really good, really expensive. Channels, where that refers to is we have coming into the building or using in the building, not just data for computers, but also Cisco phones. And so we also do voice and data both. And it can be split into multiple different channels. An example is you can have voice channels, data channels, and split multiple different ways. And you can decide how you want that split to be.
Is
As
that maximum per channel, or is that?
Yes, maximum per channel, correct. Yep, maximum per channel. And so the more channels you glom together, the more throughput you have for the for that channel, those type of channels, evidently. And so basically you've got like here in the building, we still have the old analog lines that come in when you guys call the building, but across the wall is patched into our digital that we go from analog to digital, which we can connect to our phones with. And a lot of businesses here in Rockford have that. They've been around for a while. So you've been around 20 years plus, you're going to have the same thing we have here, which is the old analog line, patch wall, and then it converts to digital in the building. Now, new buildings like the new OSF nursing, it's all digital. It's all, there is no old POTS lines in there. It's all digital. And so, but here, different. Now, once it gets in the building, we have control over, like here in Rock Valley, we have control over the entire 921 number. So anything we want within that 921 number, we have the jurisdiction to create those numbers for our own, and we do it within our own system. AT&T has no control over that. They've given us control over it. We pay for that. But what it falls upon needs to fall upon generally for businesses, if you have voice over IP, is generally some T1, at least a T1 line for sure. Now, Xfinity, the broadband Xfinity has business level that one of the companies in town I work with just purchased. And it's not coaxial like you get in your home, it's fiber. And so, but it's much more expensive than what we get in our home, but it's also much more, it's much more needed as far as, data needed than in your homes. T5 is not on here, but T5 can go up to 1,000 plus voice and data channels. The throughput on T5 can go up into, I think it's almost 300 megabits per second, or 300 to 500 megabits per second, depending on the area you're at. It does have a digital signal, a true digital signal on a T carrier line, and again, it's a much faster data path on the T carriers. Usage of T carriers would be definitely branching of offices, like I mentioned, with Coke and Pepsi here at the college. It also connecting to carrier companies, ISPs, data intensive business, which we have here. Even with the data intensive, even with all the connections we have and the speed we have, there's still times of the day that you can tell, folks are connected and folks are doing stuff. But you can imagine not having that fast connection, how slow it would be. T3, 28 times more throughput than T1. It's very expensive though. T5 is even more expensive. What they've done is, or what you do is basically when they first came out with T3, it was just multiple. It was 3 T1s combined together. T1 costs vary by region. T3 also, T5 also. The reason it varies is it depends upon who has it, just like any demand, right? The more folks buy it, the price goes down and use it, if that makes sense. So the less folks buy that service, the more expensive it's going to be. And so some areas will have what's called fractional T1, fractional T3, fractional T5. What it is like half speed or half bandwidth, where you're sharing with another company, but they're not going to bring the manpower in to lay the lines needed because they're just not the need yet. And so they'll split for that purpose. T-carrier connectivity, unlike RG45s like we did in here, they have their own connectivity devices for both the switches itself, the cabling, the router connectivity devices are unique in and of themselves. They have their own T boxes that come in from the building, are connected to the building, generally via fiber, and then from that box can connect to your regular servers in the building. They can be purchased or leased. A T carrier can, and when you lease them, it gives you all the connectivity devices needed. Because again, they mount inside your building or outside the building, a tan box that the whatever your medium is coming into your campus or into your office. And again, it could be coaxial, it could be fiber, it could be, when it first came out, it could be analog coming in, whatever it was. But that modulator box is different than a modulator box, like for instance, like your Comcast or your Xfinity box at home for cable, or a DSL box for AT&T. It's uniquely designed for the data, T carrier data that's being carried and all the channels it can have. Wiring, I've mentioned already, could be everything from plain old, POTS wiring, plain old telephone wires, untwisted, shielded, twisted pair, like we've done in here with RG45. It could be coaxial, microwave, fiber optic. T1s using STP cable, which is shielded, twisted pair, will require, Peter, every 6,000 feet, which is quite a distance compared to coaxial, or compared to the Cat5 that we did in here, about 150 feet roughly, 200 feet max. And so it can go quite a bit longer distance. Multiple T1s can have a conglomerate of different mediums like cable, coaxial cable, microfiber, or microwave and fiber optic. DSL. When I first came to Rockford, DSL was the only way to get faster internet connection from dial-up. It was about $650 a month for business to get DSL at that time. This was in 2000, 2001. It had its own box coming into the building, just like T1. T1 wasn't available yet at that point, here in Rockford anyway. And you might have heard buzz in Rockford anyway about, faster internet connection or faster fiber coming into Rockford. You might have heard that possibly around in the news and stuff, because it stops around the St. Charles area. When you get near to Rockford, they don't put the work into it. AT&T doesn't, because there's so many contractual hurdles to go over. It's not that they can't do it. It's just a lot of different companies, a lot of Xfinity's one that they know when high-speed fiber comes into the region, and the one that's providing this, by the way, is Google high-speed fiber. It's going to blow them out of the water, competition-wise. And so Xfinity's pretty powerful. They got a lot of money on sports teams, cable channels, right? Own a lot of stuff, right? Security firms. And so that's the big hurdle here. But DSL is basically, when I came here, was the only thing available faster than dial-up. And it falls upon the same backbone as everything else. The difference is, again, the boxes on the building coming in. It does support multiple channels like T1, just not as many. Generally, you'll have like two data, one voice, something like that. And it uses what's called advanced data modularization techniques, which is basically just the first digital modularization after analog was DSL. Okay, the first generation before T1, before broadband, coaxial. But here's the types of DSL. Xdsl, had ADSL, G.Light, HDSL, SDSL, VDSL, HDSL, asymmetrical and symmetrical, basically one way or both ways all the time. Downstream, pretty static downstream speeds. And then upstream, going to from the customer to the switching facility. Asymmetrical, more throughput in one direction. So companies that were web companies, right, that uploaded stuff to websites a lot, like Trek Design here in town, or that's a company I can think off the top of my head that does web stuff. They would want this type of connection because they're uploading stuff all the time, all day long, and they want that faster connection. Downstream throughput higher than upstream. Best used video conferencing, web surfing, a web design company needing that data throughput. Symmetrical is equal upload download speeds. So normal businesses that just do office stuff would want this one, and it's generally normal uploading downloading speeds, general browsing of the internet, general business type stuff. Types of DSL, you'll notice the speeds quite less significant than T1 that we looked at earlier. The highest is at 12.9 megabits per second, or 51 megabits per second on the VDSL. And then the HDSL bumped it up to around 2,000 megabits per second. Throughput, maximum upstream and downstream. Here's what a DSL, modern day DSL, looks like in your home, if you ever had one of these. And this would be switching from commercial now to home use. So anybody may have had one of these in your house before from AT&T, DSL connectivity device? Anybody remember having dial-up coming into your home? Remember those days? Okay, this was after those days. Then came the DSL days here in this region, where you'd have a Netgear box or a 3Com or something like that. You had your analog line coming in the house. You'd have a filter you had to plug in, that analog plug into your modem, and then it would then you'd have internet connection. And it served as the hub, switch, router, all three kind of for your internet. And this was before wireless really became real popular. On the DSL, ADSL basically is a modem forwarding information from the local loop. Anytime you hear local loop when it comes to DSL or broadband or fiber, what that means is every building, every region, like here in Rock Valley where we're at right now, has multiple local loops for different neighborhoods. And those local loops have boxes that you've seen around here, maybe around your home, where AT&T guys park their trucks. They put a little tent over it. You're like, what are those guys doing all day, man? Is that like taking a nap or something? Tents, and it'd be raining. Like, man, that'd be miserable. And it probably is. But, those boxes are having to be worked on a lot because whether new subdivision coming in or a transformer fried or whatever, and it affected their data, their lines, you have to repair them or something. So those are the local loop back. Or the local loop is what it's called. And local loop has a 4-pair untwisted pair, which is the analog line, which is your old analog phone lines from your home. Instead of RJ45, it's RJ12 connectors on those. But they travel, 18,000 feet, less than 18,000 feet. So old analog phone lines could travel a long distance. They could travel a long distance. Depending on and now you're probably thinking in your head, the lines you have in your house, it's much thicker lines that they would use to do that. The carrier's remote switching facility would then split the data and give the internet connectivity for the backbone. And here's a screenshot of what DSL connectivity would look like or does look like. So you've got at the top the carrier switch from the provider, we'll say AT&T, which is the only provider originally. Then it comes down to a splitter. These splitters are in those loops I just talked about. Okay, those loops, local loops. There's going to be in a gray box, a tan box, whatever. It's going to split into the different regions, the different houses, different businesses, whatever. Then you'll also notice another splitter will be there as well, sometimes between neighborhood and neighborhood, different splitters. So you have one line going in between each block, maybe, to the multiple splitters, the local loop in that block, and then finally going to your house. A little tan box on the side of the house that it plugged the analog line into. went maybe down into your basement, into a patch wall that had your old, ugly analog phone cables, phone wires in there. That even ours looks like, I would never want to do that for. It's like it basically looks like spaghetti. I mean, it's literally, there's no rhyme or reason, I don't see anyway. But the guys that work on it know what they're doing. But it's just just very thin spaghetti too, not thick, very thin spaghetti, just kind of everywhere on a patch panel, and they figure out how to do it. But you'll notice in this, it's connected to a DSL modem, which is also connected to, for the first time when it came out, which is pretty cool, not only your computer, your internet, but hey, we can start talking about, some type of connectivity device beside a computer, which would be then like faxes, and then eventually became voice over IP, which DSL did have and still does for some areas. DSL connectivity or competition would be T1, ISDN, broadband, which we'll talk about. DSL installation, same as everything else. You have your monthly costs, your hardware costs can be bought or leased. The cost is much less than ISDN, but again, it's commercial versus business. Okay, we're talking here in DSL commercial, for which would be consumer level versus business. The consumer level is going to be much less bandwidth, but much less cost too each month. Drawbacks on DSL, not available in all areas. DSL was pretty widespread here in the Rockford region. I think it always has been. They have on DSL, upstream is lower than broadband for sure. And I would even say downstream is lower as still today even. Broadband, which you guys are up to speed now today. Cable companies, Xfinity, Comcast began providing this. But believe it or not, the backbone that they have to pay for is AT&T backbone. AT&T is everywhere still. They didn't go anywhere. You might not think they're around, but they're everywhere. They get money paid every month from Xfinity for using their backbone, basically. Because without AT&T, Xfinity wouldn't exist, if that makes sense. So cable companies like Xfinity, not just for TV, but for internet, much faster speeds came about, again, using broadband coaxial. Transmission speed began at around 10 megabits per second downstream when it first came out, 2 megabits upstream. I mean, that seems like nothing now compared to what we have now, but still back then that was the school I worked at, and we had cable. That's what our speeds were right there, 5 to 10 megabits. They said 10 megabits, but I think we were getting like 4 or 5. Is roughly what we were getting. Same with your house, right? They say you're getting 150 megabits download, and you test it with your app at home or whatever, and you're getting 60 or 70 maybe, possibly. Yeah. Right? And that's at 2 in the morning. Okay. 9 a.m. in the morning and noon, a different story. Best use for broadband, definitely web surfing, general networking downloading. But again, compared to dial, we switched, like a lot of places, when you switch from dial-up to broadband, or even it's like night and day. It's like not I remember that, I don't know if I told you guys this story. If I did, forgive me. But the first week we had broadband, we still had all the connections for all, dial-up, because that's all we had. But I taught a computer class. One of the sessions was a 7th grade computer class now. The rest of it was high school. But I had one session right before lunch for 7th graders. Anybody remember being 7th grade or have any kids or nieces or nephews in 7th grade? Okay. 7th graders, by the way, if you don't remember, are very high strung. And you have to remember this is right before lunch. So they're hungry, right? And if you didn't have the stuff ready, man, like 100% coverage as far as your lesson, you were going to be killed. But anyway, we had this lesson plan. I had this lesson plan. We're going to search some images. They're going to download them, do some stuff in Photoshop. I thought it was a pretty cool lesson I was doing. Well, the broadband went out an hour before the class. So I had to dial up to my instructor station to get the internet connected. Then I shared my instructor station's internet connection with 30 desktops. Okay, I know what you're already thinking. You're downloading pictures? So yeah, 30 desktops sharing one internet connection. So anyway, the kids got in, they had their handouts, we were all excited. Okay, guys, we're working off of dial-up. We don't have the fast, because they were all excited because it's the first time they're going to use broadband. Okay, go to this website and let's start downloading this picture. 10 minutes later, the picture finally downloaded. And their faces were literally right next to the screen, watching it go down the screen, you know, the image. And I'll never forget the end of that 45 minutes lesson. I was just totally just gone. My brain was dead. Anyway, the last kid out said, Mr. Congo, I think that was the best class I've ever had. I loved watching those pictures go down the screen, you know, as it was creaking down the screen. I'm like, oh my God. Whew. Anyway, I still remember it like it was yesterday. So broadband made it much faster, but you know, in that case, it didn't because it wasn't working. It does require a cable modem to demodulate and to modulate the transmission coming in, and does require wiring, coaxial wiring coming in as well. Operates on the OSI model physical data link. Infrastructure for broadband, it's called hybrid fiber coax. It's an expensive fiber coaxial connectivity. And basically, this is basically where the cable companies figured out a way to speed up the analog was through this hybrid fiber coax consortium. So from the cable company's office to your local loop, and by the way, Xfinity does have local loops just like AT&T does. And you might have seen them. If you ever lived in a location where they had actually run line to your house, it wasn't there before. Everybody had that. There were a couple places in Rockford that we moved it. That was the case. Anyway, the guy had to find the local loop, climb up the pole, and literally run the cable from pole to pole till it got to the house, basically. Okay, which took like all day. But they do this. That's what they do for a living. And so the cable drop or cable local loop is where basically the nodes of the network, the cable company network, connect to the customer nodes, or would be the boxes in the neighborhoods, which eventually would connect to the customers' houses. From the boxes, by the way, they go up originally into the telephone poles. Now in new subdivisions, when they build new subdivisions, everything underground. So there is no telephone poles in new subdivisions. So your electrical's underground, your fiber's underground, your coaxial's underground, everything's underground. But in existing subdivisions or existing homes like ours, they had to, you know, drop it, find the drop, and then run it over the telephone wire or telephone poles. Then they have the direct connection. Now it can be on that cable drop, can be either fiber or coaxial. Most likely in Rockford, it's always going to be coaxial. There's very few fiber drops in Rockford. Some new subdivisions have, but well, all new subdivisions will have fiber, but all old neighborhoods will all be coaxial for sure. And then what's called the head end. The head end basically is much like the local loopback, but it's for a regional group of neighborhoods. So instead of every block having one, it might be like every 10 city blocks have a head where all the drops come into. Provides a dedicated connection, and then many subscribers can connect to that one line. Now, when you get more subscribers, just like in anything, and even in Xfinity and broadband, your download speeds and upload speeds are going to be affected because you have one line. It's not just you're connected with one line to Xfinity's building. No, you're connected and sharing one line with everybody in your neighborhood that has Xfinity. So here's an example picture here of the different cable drops, and it's giving you house by house, but it's going to be, and it is going to go house by house, but eventually it's going to go to these what's called distribution hubs, which are going to be basically conglomerate of neighborhoods, conglomerate together to distribute that data. So WAN topologies, dial-up all the way up to broadband, and then even latest would be what's called Sonnet. And one of the most recent ones, you guys might have heard of. It's actually in Schaumburg. There's a company called Clear Technologies. I don't know if you heard of them. It's a WAN technology for wireless internet connection to your home, okay, or anywhere you're at within a 30, 40-mile radius. And you pay like 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever, however much you want speed-wise or data throughput-wise, you pay more. And basically, it's used quite a bit in areas like Schaumburg is the closest one that we have. But again, those areas in order to get that speed for that WiMAX is what it's called, it has to have fiber, okay? And we don't have fiber to that extent anyway, to where it can be used that way. Hopefully one day we will, maybe not in my lifetime, but they said when I moved here in 2000, they were supposed to have it in 2010. Nah, last I heard it was 225, 230 before we'll have all fiber coming in. I have a cousin that lives in Kansas City, and they get free internet. He's gotten free internet for 4 years now through Google because it's a test bed. Kansas City is all fiber. Everybody lives there, including businesses, free internet. That'd be great, right? Like, yeah, geez. But I don't like Kansas City too much. Anybody been in Kansas City before? Kansas City, man, you talk about crazy driving there. When I used to be a courier when I was in school for a pathologist. Yeah, that was a fun job. I had to drive to hospital to hospital, picking up body parts, basically. Anyway, on Sunday we would deliver stuff to, and I didn't want to know what the stuff was. It was just stuff in a cooler to this Upshur Laboratories in Kansas City. Anyway, the guy who was training me said, "Okay, when you get to Kansas City," which we lived in Joplin, which is about 2.5 hours from Kansas City, Joplin, Missouri. He said, the speed limit is 55, and he goes, "You have to do at least 75, 80." So I'm not doing 75, 80. I'm not going to get a ticket. I'm not going to, is the company going to pay for the ticket? You know, they're going to pay for the lawyer to get rid of the ticket? Believe me, you're going to just believe me. So anyway, sure enough, we got there on a Sunday night about 6 o'clock. All right, I started doing 55. A cop came behind me, pulled around in front of me, put his lights on. He had actually a banner in the back of his window that said, "Speed up or get off the road." I'm like, what are you talking about? So anyway, I went up to 70 miles an hour and did that for about 6 months. And the average speed on that highway back then, even though the speed limit was 55, was 75 to 85 miles an hour. And it's crazy driving there. And if you don't know your exits, you're lost. So anyway, that's my story of Kansas City. But they have free internet. So, you know, I guess that's pretty good. Remote connectivity, getting to what we're going to talk about tonight for your take home. Has anybody ever remoted into your computer at work or home? Anybody? Okay, about 3 or 4 of you. So basically what this is basically, and it's been around for a long time. Even in dial-up days, Microsoft had if you were connected to the internet via dial-up even back in the day, you could set up your computer to be remoted into with Microsoft's remote connectivity. And you would send an invite. I'd send it to you, say, "Hey, you want to connect to my computer at 5 p.m. tonight?" Yeah. Give you a link. It'd be good for whatever time I said it would be good for. And it could be password protected or not. And then you could connect to my computer. But many people didn't use it, even though it was there. And I think a lot of reasons they didn't use it. It was kind of, took a lot of steps, like about 12 steps to create a connectivity session. And people after about 4 or 5 steps are done. They don't want to do it anymore. So remote clients connect to a LAN or WAN connectivity, regardless what it might be, LAN or WAN, doesn't matter, and connects to that remote client via a piece of software that can allows them to basically be at that computer as if they're sitting in front of that computer, and can connect and get applications, get software, whatever it is you normally do in your daily work, you can do it remotely. And today you can do it from your tablet, you can do it from your phone, even with the software we're going to talk about tonight called TeamViewer. Remote access communication requirements. You have to have a client like TeamViewer, a host, application. Theirs is cloud-based. The other one that's popular is Microsoft has and Cisco has it's called Citrix. Cisco has a Citrix product that's really expensive. Costs about $15,000 to get set up for a location for folks to remote into from the road. So salespeople and things of that nature can remote in and get files. Do I know?
That's what we use for our work.
Yeah, it's real popular. Citrix is very popular, very secure, but very expensive. But you know, it works, and it's reliable too. So it's worth the money. Appropriate software would be depending on what remote access you're using. So Citrix uses a Citrix tool, a Citrix client to connect from the computer, desktop, whatever. You double click on it, log into it, and you're connected to your computer. Dial-up would be also one to mention. Microsoft Remote Access Service, VPNs, we'll talk about in a second as well. And so the server requirements, again, depending upon what you're using. So for TeamViewer, like we're going to talk about this week, you really don't need any server requirements because it uses a cloud to connect to any clients you use Team Server for. If it's Citrix does need a dedicated server to run its software on. Microsoft also, same deal. Device types, dedicated device will be a Cisco AS5800 access server with special software for that server to run. And then Microsoft's remote access software, the RRAS, basically accepts multiple remote client connections like Citrix and a lot of security wrappings, but less popular because, again, it's not real, it's real clunky to set up and it's not real reliable. It just never has been. So it's still available, by the way, but just not many companies use it. Just not real reliable. Here is an example of a client connecting to a remote. So you've got out there on the right side, you've got, you know, your LAN. And so you've got in there your printer, your web server, your data storage. And then outside of that, you have people connecting to that. So a guy at home's on a broadband laptop, a guy in Starbucks is or maybe not Starbucks, but in his home on a T1 connection, DSL over there, somewhere else on the road, all connecting to that remote access server to get data. Now, in these type of connections, when you connect to Citrix and to RAS, you still see everything like you normally see on your computer, but you get access to all the network drives and access to your email, and all the security in that environment is now wrapped around your computer. And so everything is basically like your computer being in your office, plugged in the wall, is basically what it's like. Okay. The tool we're going to use this week literally remotes into your laptop or desktop at work, and then you access it like you normally would sitting there. Okay. These tools I'm talking about here, the RAS and the Citrix, you connect to it, and it's just, you know, you have access to everything like you were in the building, basically. Remote virtual computing, that's basically where you have a computer client across the network dedicated to a good internet connection, and they log in with the username, password, credentials, and they are now into that network and what's called a thin client, which is a remote virtual software that requires very little bandwidth. And that would be like TeamViewer, because TeamViewer has a client on your machine at work or at home. You have a client on your desktop, laptop, tablet, whatever, and you connect the two, right, with those two thin clients. And what's out here and up here that hosts that data to be connected, or that connection to stay live, is a cloud. And all the cloud basically does for TeamViewer is allow the tunnel to be there. That's it. That's all it does. But it is very low bandwidth, very low memory usage, very low. It's a very small application. It might use maybe 5 megs of RAM, maybe at the most, that it's using on your computer. Advantage of virtual computing, RVC, remote virtual computing, is very simple to set up. You'll see this week or next 2 weeks when you play with it. It can run on pretty much any connection type. You have a single host that can be connected to multiple clients, or your computer basically connected from multiple clients. So you could access it from you could access your computer from your tablet, from your laptop, from your phone, whatever you have that thin client on. The differences on remote virtual is capabilities and security mechanisms. Examples here: Microsoft Remote Desktop, which is very unpopular. All right, VNC, which we will do in here in a couple weeks. That's more used locally on a local LAN for IT departments to remote into your computer and to fix stuff. Citrix we mentioned also. And so here's the Microsoft Remote Desktop properties. You just basically check box in your computer. I want to allow remote assistance is what it's called. And then bottom one is remote. I want to allow remote desktop. That bottom one, actually, you can just check, and you literally can log into any computer you can log into your computer from any other computer while you're within the LAN in your environment. And I use that quite a bit when I'm inside of the LAN because it's much easier to use and much faster. It pops up this right here. You type in your computer name or IP address, and then you log in with your login information, and you're into your computer. VNC, called Virtual Networking Computer, it's open source, meaning it's totally free to use and to download. There's many different versions out there and flavors out there. The one I recommend and I use a lot is called Ultra VNC, which is the one we'll play with in the lab here in a few weeks. One workstation remotely manipulates, receives screen updates from another workstation is what it is. So during that lab, you'll remote each other's computers in here, and you'll literally take over that person's computer and be able to do whatever. You can chat back and forth, transfer files, stuff like that. Free, anybody can modify and use it. Advantages on this one is multiple computer platforms, so Linux, Mac, PC, Windows, and because it's open source, it's free. Drawback, and you'll see this when you play with it, is the screen flickers a lot, right? It kind of sits there and goes, it's like, it's kind of annoying, right? It is. It's not, it doesn't, especially it'll spoil you using TeamViewer and then using VNC because, again, it's just, the refresh rate is much to be desired. But the reason it's like that is, by the way, you don't have a powerful cloud service like TeamViewer helping you with that. And the software is doing everything. It's doing everything, both client and server, both. Because when you install VNC, you install a server on your end, and you're installing the client both, the viewer it's called, okay? And so your computer is both having to be a server and a viewer both, basically, all right? So when I'm remoting in your computer with the VNC, it's pulling all the data and resources from your computer for me to see it, which takes a lot of horsepower to do that. And so next is Citrix. It's, the most popular probably around still. It's very easy to use, broad compatibility, updated a lot. Disadvantages, I already mentioned, high cost, server configuration. But I would say most Fortune 500 and up companies use Citrix just because of its support for road warrior type people that need connectivity now, and they'll pay for whatever it needs to get that. Okay, they have to have it. It's built for that. The VPN's the next one, and Cisco also has VPNs as well. Cisco is the most popular company when it comes to VPNs, and right now in the VPN technology in the VPN world, iOS is the only platform that Cisco will work on with VPN software anyway. With this VPN software. And basically the way it works with VPNs is you're tunneling into that network to get data, all right, to get whatever data it is you get from your networks, from your file servers, whatever the case may be. All right, so what I want to do now is tell you about your wonderful 2-week hiatus here and your take home. What you're going to do is you're going to plan this with somebody around you, just one person. You're going to plan this And everybody did submit your name, right, in week 8? Cool. So here's the document in week 8. It's basically you both will download TeamViewer when you get home, and it works on both platforms, Mac and PC. You'll set up a time when you're going to do this, okay? And you're going to have one person, or both of you basically, you're going to decide who is going to be the helper here in the group. So who's going to remote into his computer? Now, I've had students do both ways now. They want to be remoted into, and they also want to remote. So if you want to do that, that's fine. You can definitely do that. I'm only requiring you to do one way, meaning somebody's going to be like the tech person, the other person is going to be the one with the problem. But the way TeamViewer works is it's kind of cool. When you download it, and it's free for non-commercial use. If you're a company, you have to pay for it. But the way it works is you can install it as what's called a one-time use only, like it says here. And that's what I want you to try it with. Now, if you like it, I would recommend, if you like how it works, is installing it as this unintended user. That way, when you leave your house, you can install TeamViewer on your iPhone, on your Android, on your Mac or PC, and then log in from those locations and access your computer and log in and view your files and view your desktop just like you were sitting in front of it. But make sure when you do this, you do the run only first, personal non-commercial use. If you do this one, it'll ask you to pay for it. Hit the accept run. That's it. That's all you got to do. It'll give you, by the way, when you run it the first time, it'll say you're ready to be remote controlled. It'll give you an ID and a password, and that's what you'll have to give your partner that you're going to do the lab with. All right. So you're going to set up a time and date when you both can connect to one another, Mac or PC. Decide who's going to be the expert, the person remote controlling you, and who's going to be the user, the one that's being remote controlled. Both of you will start TeamViewer. You're both going to have to do it. And then once it's up and running, TeamViewer will give you a unique code each time. It'll give the same user ID, but a unique password every time you start it. So what you're going to do, the user will call or text the expert and give them that username and ID, that ID and password, basically. So however you want to do it, text, call, email, doesn't matter. Just make sure when you give that person that's remoting into you, make sure you don't close down TeamViewer in the time that you call or text them, and then restart it again because it'll be a different password. Okay, it's a one-time password, and the reason I tell you that is a couple reasons. For security purposes, you don't want somebody just remoting your computer without your acknowledgement, right? So, just so you know, when you restart TeamViewer, if you were to restart it again, they're not going to be able to use that same code again. That password is going to be different. So that hopefully will help ease your mind. So what you're going to do here is find out a date and time, call or text. Then the expert will type that username and connection ID password and click connect to partner. Once connected, the expert will start Notepad or TextPad if they're on a Mac on the other end. The expert will type in Notepad or TextPad their first and last name, save it on the desktop. The expert will also go into the internet browser. So it could be any internet browser, and you guys can decide what that is. It could be Safari if it's on Mac. It could be Chrome on Mac or PC. But let the user you're controlling into tell you what browser to get into, just like when you discuss it tonight. And then the expert's going to change your homepage to myreceipt.org, which is our division website. If you don't know how to do that on whatever browser they tell you, you can Google that to find out how to set their homepage to that, which is not real difficult to do. And then you'll end the session. And then once that session's ended, both of you, I want you to end it, and then that way the person remoting in cannot remote back in immediately. Make sense? All right, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to also both of you are going to send to the Dropbox lab in week 8 your experience, basically. That's all I need. Just a little blurb on what you thought of TeamViewer type thing. All right. So yeah, it was okay. I won't use it again, but yeah, it was interesting. Or something might be like, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm going to start using this from now on. So whatever your experience is in between, that's great. Just let me know. And questions? Okay, so before you leave, get with a partner. Now, I do allow students, if you want, you can work with 2 people if you want to. Just make sure you are working with at least one other person to set up a time and a date to do this. Now, you have until a week from this Sunday to finish it. Spring break's next week. So between now and not this Sunday, but the following Sunday to complete it. Make sense? All right, let's go ahead and do it. And then once you're done doing that, make sure and go back to your computer, shut everything down, and you're free to go and have a great spring break. Spend time with your family. At least a couple days of non-screen time would be awesome. And enjoy it.